When a great piece of art is made, one that breaks the mold of its genre or expresses feelings and ideas that are new and exciting, society scrambles to understand how it came to be. This is how an unknown group of people from the small Eastern European nation of Estonia quickly became some of the most respected game developers in the world, despite none of them having made a game before. But entropy comes for all of us, and over the years the bonds that brought these people together were stretched and strained. Some puffed out their feathers to get the attention they long desired. Some fell quiet, perhaps uncertain if the personal cost of making that art was worth paying again. In the shadows, others schemed to extract surplus value from the asset, while new artists, inspired by this groundbreaking game, rushed to be part of its next chapter. A chapter that, several years later, has yet to appear. This is not a story about what happened after the launch of Disco Elysium, at least not yet. This is the story of the moment lightning was captured in a bottle, of the time, place, and circumstances that led to the creation of one of the most beloved video games of all time. A talisman turned monkey paw that forever changed games and the lives of the people who made it. To produce this documentary, I spent a week in Estonia's capital Tallinn with Robert Kurvitz, Helen Hintborough, and Alexander Rostov. I spoke to other developers remotely and in person, some on the record and some off, to try and paint a picture of this game's creation and to celebrate each individual who participated in its development. Because the story of Disco Elysium's development has lessons that are worth sharing with the game's development community, what the studio got right, and difficult lessons they learned along the way. And so, over the coming weeks, we're going to have episodes focused on writing, design, art, and more. But to understand how Disco Elysium came to be, we have to go back before any lines of code were ever written, where a disorganized bunch of artists searching for acknowledgement and financial stability would find strength in banding together. In this first episode, we focus on foundations, a very particular set of people in a particular time in the history of a very particular place.
I grew up in Mustamäe. It translates as Black Hill or Black Mount. There is no actual mountain, it's just flat ground. And both of my parents are artists, painters and stuff like that. So I was raised by my mom in Mustamäe. And then my dad is Raul Kurvits. He's a famous Estonian artist. And a famous Estonian artist means that 20,000 people know you and 17,000 people hate you. So, because both of my parents were artists, I didn't want to become one. I saw how sad my mom was when it wasn't succeeding, when the paintings weren't coming out well, and I thought that I don't want that kind of stress in my life. So I decided instead the stress you get when the writing isn't coming out well. I went to a really wannabe British boarding school called Tallinn English College. And then it was a pretty psychotic and then miserable school to go to, so I went there for about 9 years. And then I dropped out and I never got any more education. And then I became, I guess, like a high school dropout. And I found a lot of other high school dropouts. And then we started playing what we thought was Dungeons and Dragons, but what was actually like a knockoff Dungeons and Dragons, basically from Finland. And then it wasn't a very good system. It was very thin and very minimal. But that kind of taught me that pen and paper systems should be very minimal. And also it was good that it wasn't very good, because we immediately wanted to make a better one. And so I got to work on that one. So that was the first kind of incarnation of it. And then we quickly realized that it wasn't cool enough, that it needs to be cooler. And then I think over ages 15 to 22, me and a smaller group of players started evolving the high fantasy version into finally what Elysium was.
When I was a young man, I heard these stories like whispers around town. These slightly older guys, they have this insanely advanced version of the thing they're doing, which is slightly steampunky, but in a tasteful kind of way, called Elysium. And that they don't even they have thrown away the elves and the dwarves. Wow, what? You immediately understand that if they think of throwing away the elves and the dwarves, that this is good taste. And steampunk also just wasn't quite as embarrassing as it is now. So I sort of started out as a fan of that. I heard like rumors and stories of that.
Me and Robert, we go back all the way to like I think 2001 was when I first met Robert. Was it? I got married in 2007, and around that time, the first iteration of Zaum, the cultural movement, was also founded. Robert Luiks, I mean Martin Luiga, myself, Yuri, the guy who concepted the kinema model and weapons for disco, were just some of the members there.
To give a little like a color to the story, the traditions go back a long while in these parts of the world. Throughout the 20th century, there were all of the isms and the movements and artists banding together to form these groupings. I don't know, I think every European country has a movement called the young, that country. So it's something that you kind of grow up here knowing that this is a wise thing to do if you're a creative person. You find your gang, and then you form a gang, and then you commit art hooliganism against society. And so as teenagers, I don't know, well, punk was a big thing here, sort of post-Soviet stuff, and Venaskond, the greatest of them all, taught us all romantic thinking and how to, like, I don't know, see beauty in the world. And then there's the Eastern European bohemian that like wants to dress up like a character from Bulgakov's Master and Margarita, and drink a lot of very sweet blackcurrant wine. So from this kind of soil, I guess, arose this generation of youth who did cosplay of being artists and stuff when they were young, and then graduated into being artists.
Right. So you cosplay, yeah, you pretend to be an artist long enough, you become one?
Yes, that seems to be the way. You were alive and you were young. You had these interesting people to spend time with. We visited each other's houses and talked about things. We, of course, mercilessly criticized the shoddy state of art in our home country and perhaps elsewhere in the world, but we had less contact with that. And then we did art. Well, we started that blog thing that was sort of the flagship product of the movement, let's say, where we wrote essays and comedic skits and published, I guess, pictures, paintings and stuff, and photographs, and I don't know, paper cuts and so many things. We did that for many years. We were all extremely poor. At some point, Robert was so poor that he didn't have a place to live, and I was just not poor enough that I had a little painting studio that the rent was 100 euros. So we split that between us, 50-50, and sometimes we failed to put that together.
Literally 50-50?
Yes, 50 euros, 50-50.
I think there was a line about Stalin that I heard one day, which is when he got about the time he was 30, he realized that he had nothing, that he was a loser, and that he only had the admiration of a small group of friends. So there's not a lot of things about the life of Stalin that resonate with me, but that age and that respect. But I did have the respect of my friends, and they were really, really, really cool friends.
Over the previous decade or so, Robert and a smaller group of friends had been exploring Dungeons & Dragons, practicing their skills in the art of live storytelling. And it's through these stories that the world of Elysium began to emerge.
The first one was, and this was the first Elysium campaign, it was called Maailma sügis in Estonian. So in English it's called World Autumn. And it had two players, Martin Luiga, a friend of mine at the time, and then the later also a world builder on Elysium, and then the contributor to Disco Elysium. And then Dargo Tuulik played his coach driver. So already you can hear there's a coach there. At this time I think it was like steampunkish. Maybe Alan Moore from Hell was a huge inspiration on this. It was an amnesiac story. I just read Planescape Torment and I wanted an amnesiac story. And then it was a very free-form game where Argo and Martin wanted to go to the to the amusement park in Revachol. So that was pretty fun, and from there we realized that, okay, it's now becoming more serious, like I can tell stories in it. So the next one was also set in Revachol, and it was also the players were Martin and Dargo, and this one was called Riget, and this is a Danish name for kingdom. So the game was like a Lord of the Flies type of thing, and with like kids going underground to find artifacts or like archaeological remains from like the underground catacombs in Revachol. And then somehow the catacombs get closed off and they can't get to the surface anymore. But also we had a lot of work building there already, and I liked it even more. Then I was even more proud of the result than the World Autumn one, and so were Martin and Dargo. They thought it was moving in the right direction. I was building confidence as a rider, and then we were building confidence also as a bit of like a team. At that time I thought that was kind of like my biggest talent, to be a game master. But the problem is, it's like written on water, you can't get money for it.
Altogether, I think we're talking sessions from 3 separate campaigns. 3 separate campaigns with so many years between them.
And then we played the third campaign. And then the third campaign was called Thorson and MacLean. Argo played Mac Thorson, a cup in Revachol. Martin played Chester MacLean, his partner. By the time of the Thorson and MacLean campaign, and this was back over ground in Revachol again, we were really focused on the city, like that was supposed to be the kind of cycle or the kind of center of the Elysium locations.
Identity of Revachol, for example, was pretty much already there. Jamrock was pretty much already there. Martinez was new. Martinez was made specifically for Disco Elysium. Huge amount of world building for the Thorson and MacLean cycle, and kind of by extension, not so much Martinez, but Jamrock and this whole cop stuff. This came from the FX TV series The Shield with Michael Chiklis. Literally, Mac Thorson is an amalgamation of yours truly and Michael Chiklis.
We just watched like 5 or 6 seasons of The Shield, which I to this day, by the way, prefer to The Wire. I think it's just more fun and more Nietzschean or more like Eid-centric. So we kind of thought, okay, this but in Elysium, like a cup show. So it was really, really cool. And that, I think, went for about 7 play sessions or episodes. And then by that time, we'd washed the steampunk out of the setting. There were like plastic telephones now, and then things were really 70s looking, because that cup show creates this 70s feeling. And that's where we got communists into it. And then by the time I was like, I think 22 and 23 and very poor and very angry. So that started kind of seeping into the setting. And that's where I think I learned the task of putting the player into the shoes of the character. It needs to be an immediate hook. You need to be immediately like plugged into the character, and then there need to be these icons and structures. The first scene where you find yourself as the character needs to be a personal kind of scene where you kind of glue the soul onto the puppet of the character. And then in each one of these cases it just became better and better. And I think this Harry opening is a kind of end result of all of these tests, how to make a player immediately understand a character. What ended up happening was all of these previous versions of the world became layers in the world.
Right.
So even the kind of high fantasy stuff became its kind of Bronze Age. And then this was a way we were able to, and at that time I became super interested in this guy called Hegel, this philosopher called Hegel, and is a kind of Christian philosopher, but also a philosopher of history. And I thought that I have a way now, and we have enough content to create like layers of history underneath it that are convincing or would feel, or at least trick a reader that this is a real world that has like thousands of years of history.
Estonia is a country with thousands of years of history, where the modern stage is so clearly influenced by the people and events that preceded it. While tribes of settlers lived on this land as far back as time stretches, it was in the 13th century that Tallinn emerged as an economic hub, the northernmost port of the Hanseatic League, which established secure maritime trade across the North and Baltic seas. But this strategic location would continually bring conflict to Estonian land. Over the centuries, Danes, Germans, Swedes, and Russians would squabble for power, often leading to extended periods of war, famine, and serfdom. Perhaps it's because of that Estonia has never quite fit in with its neighbours, not quite Scandinavian, not quite Russian. Alongside its Baltic neighbours, Latvia and Lithuania, Estonia gained independence from the Soviet Union using its voice, the so-called Singing Revolution, ending centuries of Russian influence over the territory. The modern tale of Estonia is one of this great emergence from the rubble of the Soviet Union, a neoliberal wet dream where privatization and technological investment has brought modernity to the 1.3 million or so people who call this land home. Well, at least that's the tale.
I come from a noble working class family. My dad, what do you call it? I don't know, metal work, putting machines together in a factory. But another thing my dad did, he did have an interest in the arts. So he never became an artist, he became a working class hero, but he did draw and stuff, and then I picked it up from him as well, I suppose. And my mom got me into computers. She studied the big giant computers that are like rooms big. But later she worked in some government institution on normal computers when I was a kid, so I could play what did I play? Paperboy and some like ancient 3D Tetris in DOS and stuff like that. So that's where the computers and video games come from.
What was it like playing games in the 90s here, post-Soviet Estonia?
Yes, it's the Kadakaturg yellow cartridge market. We had the pirate Nintendo called the Dendy. This is like a Eastern Bloc legend. But then of course PC became big here. There was this big, and in general there was this computerization happening, and I got myself a 486. The best games, they come from 1998. Or 1 year before or after. I don't know, the Fallouts and the Thieves and the Half-Lives and all the Baldur's Gates and Alpha Centauri, and oh my god, just, I don't know, the most amazing year in gaming and maybe in human history. And the birth of Windows 98, the best of the Windows. There's a collection of games that are sort of foundational for the Eastern European gamer experience. It's games like Heroes of Might and Magic, 2 or 3. Civilization 2, the best Civilization game. Fallouts, of course. The Fallouts are just momentous. They just broke everyone's brains here. It's like when the Eastern mind tries to make a video game, it just wants to make Fallout, basically. The American mirror from the Cold War, and then the apocalypse that happened in the East but didn't happen in the West. And I don't know, it's just also mesmerizingly, and it's made for the grimy and serious taste palettes. You can see the later Fallouts have become kind of cartoony parodies, or like these caricatures of the original aesthetics, but the first one especially is like the most serious game you've ever played, with a little bit of funky humor in there to make it more palatable. So there was these isometric role-playing games, and then people tended to have their favorite, and they expressed their individuality by which one they, of course, choose. You got the sort of like simple beer chugging guy who says it's the Baldur's Gate, take the party out and kill some kobolds and stuff. And then if you're like the really cool guys, like, I don't know, reading poetry and stuff, no, it's gonna be Planescape Torment, of course.
I think first of all it's important to understand that Estonia was also it was called a model republic, or a very successful and envied part of the Soviet Union. It had one of the best economies here. It was the most liberal part of the Soviet Union. It was a window to the West. It was very close. We had Finnish television, Levi's jeans before anyone else did, even before Moscow had them sometimes. So Soviet Estonia was also in a way kind of like the goody two-shoes of the Soviet Union. Estonians are try-hard people. I mean, in the 12th century, when the Hanseatic League came here, there was a huge amount of wealth going through this place as well. So this is not a novel thing that it's been successful as the kind of model post-Soviet republic as well, you could already place your bet on it. It's also fueled by some pretty evil trickery, like we took away basically citizenship from about 150 or maybe even 200,000, there might be Russian people, so that they couldn't vote, so that we could turn it more right. But in a brutal way, it worked. We'd had the most neoliberal, the hardest hitting neoliberal reforms. We just basically sold everything that wasn't bolted to the door, and also what was bolted to the ground, and the ground itself, and the sky, and everything. First of all, also Estonians were pretty hardcore communists, which they now want to pretend that they weren't, and not very nice communists too. They sent it, someone needed to make the lists of people who went to Siberia. So I don't have this kind of weakling view of Estonia. Estonians would very much like to victimize their place. But where it does have a very weakling view is before the Soviet Union started. It's about 200 years ago, this place used to be full serfdom. My grandmother didn't know how to write, and then we were basically white slaves. So about 2 centuries ago, things were incredibly bad. So it's this very virulent project that's doing surprisingly well, and then the better things are going. That I don't really feel part of. So I don't really know if I can speak for it, and I don't really think the game speaks for it. What I feel the game speaks for definitely is being lost in history, having lost your planetary homeland, having lost the Soviet Union, and then it thankfully, and the Elysium project itself if you want a like one line elevator pitch for it, then it's basically Soviet Tolkien. So on one end, it's just more about the 1870s in France. It's really inspired by Zola, and it's inspired by the time when the Paris Commune was in Paris. So what we wanted was not to think about Tallinn when we came up with Revachol. That was the entire point of it, that we were disgusted with Tallinn, and then you don't play pen and paper role-playing games in another reality to continue being in Tallinn. But at the same time, there's a name a kind of Latin name of Tallinn is Reval, which is pretty strangely close to Revachol. But at the same time, Revachol is an anarchist, a French anarchist. So it's taken from that French anarchist's name, the name of that city. So it is and isn't about Tallinn. But the ways in which it is about Tallinn and us is that it very directly or purposefully wants to be a Soviet work of art. Like that, it's not newly independent Tallinn or Estonia that it wants to be part of. It wants to be a final missive from the Soviet Union. I remember the Soviet Union from my childhood and have always that this is where I betray my fatherland and then get egged on the street. But I've always felt more like a Soviet, for better and for worse, than an Estonian person. And I felt this part of it, and we all did. And that's definitely this kind of planetary Soviet ambition that's in the Elysium project, and that I don't think can completely be, reduced to the 90s Estonia and stuff like that. It kind of follows off of bands like Vennaskond, an Estonian band which we all really loved, and which forms the most precious part of the Estonian culture, which is a Soviet punk band basically. And then also Soviet Estonian authors and writers, above all Arvi Siig, a kind of Estonian Majakovsky, if you will. So our kind of DNA is very much this Soviet era stuff, and then that's, I think, the way in which it is very much. That's what I admit is completely in it. So in that way, it is very, very Tallinn centric.
Not every Estonian has a nostalgic warm spot for the Soviet Union, but it's fair to say progress has left some sections of Estonian society behind. In the years following independence, organised crime and violence escalated as different parties vied to fill the new power vacuum. This period of cowboy capitalism was the original sin of this new neoliberal Estonia. Today, the majority of Estonians vote in parliamentary elections online from the comfort of their homes. Buses in major cities are free for most residents, parking is paid online and the streets are clean, but you do get the feeling, especially when talking to the more bohemian Estonian, that much cultural bathwater was lost when the Soviet baby was tossed out. Alexander and Helen grew up in Tallinn during this fractious period, a generation of Estonians who witnessed firsthand the destruction of the old hegemony and the rise of another.
So this is what inspired Artemitev's boxing club. It used to be called Artemitev's boxing club, but the name has changed. I don't know what has happened to Artemitev's, but it's just boxing club now. But yeah, it was the center of action in this neighborhood, so it was the main place where you could get drugs. And I think, so I grew up just a few houses from here. And when I was a child, I think there was 3 times that someone's homemade bomb blew up here. I thought it was normal thing that happens. So I was someday my house is probably gonna blow up as well, but I didn't know. I did not realize that it's uncommon.
It's where the lowlifes got to live, because it was like a dormitory for the very financially deprived. So it was just a famous hotspot of drugs and men of bad deeds.
And boxing.
To vent out some of the bad deeds in a more amicable setting with a referee or something.
I think this was back in maybe 2010. So I had a blog. They had a blog. It was obviously because it was 2010. It was the coolest thing to have. If you were doing anything, you just had to have a blog. I was a teenager back then. I think I was 15, 16. I had realized that I wanted to become a writer. I was how do you become a writer? Just start writing. So I would set myself those writing exercises, and I would use my blog for that. So there would be poems, some short fiction, but just also a lot of scenes from everyday life. And I think it was actually Luiga who found my blog and commented on it and was oh, your writing is amazing. Who are you? What's happening? And I went over to their blog and discovered that Robert is involved, because Robert had a band and I was listening to it actually, but I didn't know that he had a blog as well. So I was a fan. And I remember that at some point, even before I had met any of them, Luiga sent me just a Word document that was a draft for Robert's novel, The Sacred and Terrible Air. And it was summer and I would read it and I was oh my God, it's the best thing I've read in Estonian language. It's pure poetry. I'm oh wow. Even before I had met Robert, I got his book and it was just a PDF that I printed out, and I would just read it on those A4 printouts, and it was the coolest thing ever. I was oh my God, what is this thing? I want to get to know those people. I just want to get closer. It was yeah.
I heard that some Russians, they've done a Russian translation, which I hear is, I get more positive feedback from people to it. I haven't read any of them, of course, and I've heard that some people are printing it in Russia, which I don't know if it's legal. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer guy, but it doesn't seem very legal. But then again, who cares at this point? The least of the illegal things happening with that IP.
Over the years, Robert, Argo and Martin had added historical and narrative layers to the world of Elysium, and Robert, responsible for much of that work and pursuing a career in writing, decided to write his first novel, Sacred and Terrible Air, in the world of Elysium. He was inspired by the music of Swedish band Kent to tell a dark story, evocative of Scandinavian noir.
I spent about 5 years with it, and then it came out and it wasn't a huge hit. Which was very dispiriting at the time. It didn't sell a lot of copies, and because it was in Estonia, and I don't understand how I expected it to sell a lot of copies, but I thought some kind of miracle was supposed to happen.
I was trying to become an Estonian novelist, which is a terrible idea, but I had not discovered it yet. It's a terrible idea mostly because it's 1 million people here. A bestseller sells 3,000 copies, maybe 10,000 if you're big, but like the numbers are so small, and I think most books are self-published, and it's like 500 copies. So it's like, yeah, like a lot of work, but almost no audience, just your, Facebook friends list, if you're doing good.
I expected to sell about 10,000 copies, I think, and I sold 1,500 or something like that. And then we made about 4,000 copies of the book, and 2,000 were sent into the, what's it called? It's called paberihund, paper wolf.
Shredder?
Shredder, yeah.
Paper wolf is a much better.
Yeah. It's sent, yeah. So the rest were shredded. I didn't even know that they were shredded. By the way, now they would sell, we would have been able to sell the other 2,500 of them too, but someone had an itchy shredder finger. Although I was very worried about how I'm gonna pay rent, I was still full of confidence about the world, and I just thought that maybe it needs another angle. It needs to be done in games, probably. So after the failure of that, I got like an expensive Alienware laptop with the little money that I had, which to me seemed like the most debauched item that I could possibly own, with like LED lights on it. I bought myself an Razer Ouroboros mouse with the last money I had. And then I was like, I let everyone know that I'm not a novelist anymore. I'm gonna try to make video games. And I thought the first thing was I'm just gonna become a journalist, a video game journalist. I'm just gonna like write for Rock Paper Shotgun or something. I didn't tell them that I was gonna do that, but so I went to Rostov and I was like, okay, I think we can turn the Thorson and McLean adventure, which Rostov knew about by that time, I think we can turn it into an isometric game, because Rostov by that time had developed this beautiful style, and then we had used it for illustrations from my novel, and I understood that Revachol is like an ornate and Frenchy enough place so that you could view it top down and it could have this kind of art style, and that Rostov would like probably hit it out of the park. So the setting was really, the idea of it was kind of custom made for a kind of pre-rendered background thing, because there we knew that we could punch above our weight class, or we could make it look really, really, really pretty with Rostov's abilities of treating pre-rendered surfaces. And he was on board. And then I went to Yuri Saks. Yuri Saks had also been part of these very early Evermere games. He's like a genius of graphical design in Estonia, and he's very picky about the projects he works with. And he was my parallel classmate, and then the great friend of mine. And he drew like God himself, And then he's very picky about projects, but somehow I was able to get him on board for making the kind of industrial design for Elysium. In the first 3 months after that, we just worked on Kinema, the cop car, and we had different versions, and then we came up with Kinema, and it was like, that's perfect. And weapons design, and then later computers, these radio computers that the game has.
We sort of developed it over a couple of paintings. One was of the eminent domain. That's like all these wood shack houses with like a giant motorway going over them. The little people, and then the modern capitalism building ruthless paths over them, which are these like wood houses, which are kind of modeled on the Kalamaja stuff here in Tallinn. Anyway, so we had like an understanding of how it should be, and then we started researching how to like make this into a game.
I would say it was like actually, in hindsight, an incredibly fruitful 4-month kind of concepting phase, where finally all of the ideas we had were realized on paper as concept art, and we put together this proposition for a game called The Return, which was supposed to be this giant police procedural in Elysium, and like even an expanded version of Thorson and McLean.
With combat and everything.
With combat and everything, yeah. At that time, I think Pillars of Eternity was just coming out, and then we played it. We're like, okay, that's very cool. We can have combat and stuff, and because cops, they have some reason to shoot. Important thing to have in a setting and a story. So we put this whole thing together. So this is, I would say, essentially the concept of Disco Elysium.
Robert and Luik's first came by my place, and they said, now things are getting exciting. We are actually waiting to hear back from an investor. 2016, I had this first like a serious sit down with Robert where he said like, okay, now we have money. Do you want to come and work for us?
I remember when I first kind of got wind that there might be a possibility to get money, because in games we always wanted to make a game, but that just felt impossible.
Right.
Money-wise, Kender has the investment idea to get money from an Estonian investor called Margus Linnamäe, one of the best known rich people in Estonia, which is kind of selling him short. Kaur had that connection, and then it took about a year to get the investment done, and then kudos goes to Kaur for that connection, because probably without it we would never have gotten the money. So he like rightfully should be known as the person who got Disco Elysium the investment money. It was a hard sell, even by Kaur to Margus, and I don't know to this day why he gave us that money, but I'm glad he did.
With an initial investment somewhere in the range of 700,000 euros, Robert and fellow Zaum member Kau Kender got an office and started to build a team of like-minded Estonian artists, writers and engineers, none of whom had ever worked on a commercial game before. In the next episode we focus on the building, how a selection of programmers, writers, musicians and artists turned a dilapidated hippie squat in central Tallinn into the studio that built Disco Elysium. As ever, if you're a Noclip Early Access patron, you can watch that episode right now, a week ahead of its public release. We also have bonus scenes from my filming in Estonia for all of our patrons too. A thank you for supporting our efforts to document video game history. See you next time.